When I was doing my degree, one of the courses that I took was cases in strategic management. And the objective of that course was to help us to diagnose a problem. Because more often than not, when you're in a leadership position or a managerial position, you'll often find yourself confronted with issues that are not apparently clear. You're not apparently clear as to what the actual issue is that you need to fix so that you can marshal your resources correctly. And so they would give us these cases, with a bunch of information. And there was a strategy for us to figure out what the actual problem was so that we could offer a solution. So we would look at what are the things that are trivial, just information that are there that have no real significance to the issue at hand. And we would also look at the symptoms of the problem, what caused the issue. And then we would also need to determine what the actual problem was so that we're not addressing the symptoms but the actual issue at hand. And so it was one of the most interesting courses that I took when I was in college. And it has helped me, in my professional life. I try to take much of what I learned and apply it in, my professional life as well as my personal life. And also, I did research methodologies. Of course, I had to do a research proposal. And that has also helped me, in doing these social media videos to kind of like it's easier to drill down. Like there are certain techniques that you learn in terms of how you do actual research, how you vet information, and that sort of thing. So I know in the social media space, people tend to just go with what they hear because usually it's the first person to post that gets the views, and in so doing, then truth becomes a casualty and perception becomes everything. I do not wish to relitigate the issue of East Portland. I made a video about it which I posted, and you know, there were some comments. People were saying that I should do more research, as they were dissatisfied, I suspect, with the views that I had about the results of the general elections with respect to the East Portland seat. That's not what I'm here to talk about, but I have received the answer as to why the people in East Portland voted out the incumbent, Anna Rivas. So I'm going to just clean that up or clear that up before I move into what I really want to talk about. So, of course, I made the video and people were commenting, oh, you don't know what is going on. And they keep saying the same thing, you don't know what is going on, you don't know what is going on. But nobody's saying what is going on. And, one person was saying that they're trying to sell the blue hole or something of the sort. I'm like, is it Anne-Marie who's doing it? Is she backing, like, what is going on? Like, I just need to know. Is that there's a genuine interest? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm saying the whole of Jamaica, for the most part, believe that Anne-Marie would have won this seat. And she didn't. And we are curious to know why. And you keep saying we don't know what's going on, but you're not telling us what is going on. The member of parliament for the People's National Party, Isaac Buchanan, went on Let's Be Honest podcast. I'm not sure when he went on the podcast, but a clip of that, I think it's over an hour and a half, interview was posted on TikTok. And I saw the clip and I said, did you know how politicians, oh they are, they never give you a straight answer, which is vexing in and of itself. But he did answer the question. And the reason why the people of East Portland voted out Anne-Marie Vaz is because the PNP supporters came out in their numbers and voted for the PNP. That's it. Everything else is just noise. The PNP supporters came out and voted for Isaac Buchanan, largely due to the fact that there was a popular entertainer who endorsed Isaac. I am not the only one who shared that sentiment. I respect very much Twins of Tulax's opinions on most things. And he made a recent video, and you can go and watch his video on YouTube. And he basically came to the same conclusion. The people voted for hype. So our initial assumption as to why Anne-Marie lost her seat was correct. This had nothing to do with the stuff that these people trying to, because nobody's saying, because it's like, you just went, the PNP supporters came out in their numbers and they voted. If the issues that were advanced as the reason why Anne-Marie lost her seat, she would have lost poorly. Isaac won by 100 and something votes. So there is no way she could have been such a horrible MP, or the issues where they're talking about, oh, they're trying to get rid of the fishermen and they're trying to sell off the beaches and all of that. The vote was split 50-50. The vote was split 50-50. There is no way the reasons that you are proffering make any sense. And she lost by a very small margin, 100 and odd votes. No, the PNP supporters came out and they voted. That's it. They came out and they voted. People just voted along party lines. Because if you look at the number of votes that Amory got, it was relatively the same amount of votes that she got in 2020. In the 2020 election. So nothing changed. The people who were PNP, who stayed home during 2020 because of COVID or whatever reason, that were JLP, that were PNP supporters, came out and they voted along party lines. That's it. You guys voted along party lines. It had nothing to do with anything other than I am PNP and I'm voting PNP. I am JLP and I'm voting PNP and I'm voting JLP. And that is an indictment on that constituency. Because we believe that in 2025 we would have more informed voters and people would vote in their best interest and not along party lines. But nothing has changed, unfortunately. And the reason why I know nothing has changed is because the third party did not win a seat. I didn't even get any votes close enough to even suggest that there's any, none of the leaders of the third parties got any amount of vote. I think Joseph Patterson got 11 votes in somewhere in St. Elizabeth, wherever he ran. So how are we saying we want better for Jamaica? And we have the two political parties run by the oligarchs of Jamaica, run by the descendants of our colonizers. And we keep voting them in, and we are ignoring other people who are saying, I'm not going to join any of these two parties because they are corrupt. But we don't give them a chance. I just don't understand. I don't understand it. One seat from a third party would have given me some hope that Jamaica is moving in the right direction, but like clockwork, we voted along party lines. And it took me a while to get into what I really want to talk about. Now, the general elections, the JLP won, and we must now say congratulations to Prime Minister Andrew Holness in securing a third term. He has made history because I think he is the first leader of the JLP that has secured a third term. And he is the second longest serving Prime Minister in the history of Jamaica. I believe the one that had the longest term was Percival James Partisan, who served Jamaica for 14 years. And now Andrew Holness, if he carries out the full 5 years, will have served Jamaica also for 14 years. And is the only JLP leader that has ever had a third term in the history of Jamaican politics. So that is something that is to be commended. Now, did the JLP steal the 2025 general elections? That is the question that we must answer in this video. Every election that we can think of, there were many elections before I was born. As you can see, I'm not that old, right? I cast my first vote in 2007, so that should give you an idea that I'm not that old, right? So I have not seen that very many elections. But of all the elections that I have seen since I've been on this earth, people have always complained that there were voter buying, there was voter suppression, and the party who won stole the election. We need to stop it. I see a lot of videos on social media, often promulgated by people who should know better, saying that the JLP stole the election, saying that the police threw away boxes. And we have to be more responsible in how we conduct ourselves as citizens of this country. We have to be more responsible in our utterances. I know there is such a thing as freedom of speech, but I will tell you one thing. Irrespective of what is happening in Jamaica, if I take a plane and I go overseas, you can't catch me no day speaking anything bad about Jamaica. You'll never see that happening. Not from me. I love my country. And of course, when there are housekeeping matters that needs to be addressed, I will address them. We ought to respect the electoral process. And if we feel that there are loopholes in the process that allows for bad actors to unduly influence the results or the outcome of an election, then we should ensure that our members of parliament go into parliament, put forward a motion on the floor to close those loopholes. We cannot every election come, and once the party that we did not vote for wins, we're saying, oh, they stole the election with no evidence, no proof, no whatsoever, except that you are dissatisfied with the result. It's okay if you're dissatisfied. You can only vote for one party, you can't vote for both of them. The PMP has been accused of stealing the election when they won. And the JLP has been accused of stealing the election when they won. Why do we keep doing this? We have to do better. No, of course, I too, because like I said, based on the optics, when I was watching the live results of the election and I saw the St. Andrew West Central seat, which is the Prime Minister's seat, and all the vote was coming in, and then there was this long pause of about 2.5 hours when the votes were moving, and then after 2.5 hours, the Prime Minister miraculously got 2,300 votes. I shouldn't say miraculously because that's the response. The Prime Minister got 2,300 votes and pushed ahead of his opponent to win the seat in St. Andrew West Central. And so, there were a lot of circumstances that made the thing look weird. Like, okay, the internet was going on with some foolishness. The vote count seemed to have paused for 2.5 hours. And then, once things came back, the Prime Minister just came out ahead. So just on the face of it, it looked like something untoward happened. And of course, that gave the PNP supporters ammunition now to disparage the Prime Minister, to disparage the electoral process, and to make all sorts of allegations as to what they think happened. It drags us back into the tribal politics, albeit not violent, thank God, of the 80s. And I would love to see us choose Jamaica. I would love to see us choose Jamaica. Now, of course, I went to the Electoral Office of Jamaica's website because there was one video, I think it was by Marvin Littlefire, whatever his name is, right? He has been outspoken since COVID, because most of us who were doing this, I started doing this during COVID, when the 6 feet apart and the 2 weeks to slowly spread narrative was worn out and was still being used, and it just wasn't making any sense to me. And then I started doing my own research to figure out, okay, what's going on, because some things are adding up, and then I realized that the math wasn't mathing at all. And so I started to speak, right? So most of us are COVID, babies in terms of a presence on the internet. And he has been speaking and advocating and blah, blah, blah. And everyone has an agenda. So I saw a video that he posted this morning, and he was saying that the Prime Minister got more votes than people registered in the constituency. And I saw another video on TikTok that was expressing the same thing. I think I saw about 2 or 3 videos saying, oh, the Prime Minister got more votes than people who are registered in the constituency. So, of course, I am not one to parrot narratives. I'm not one to jump on a bandwagon and repeat what I hear because it sounds good or it suits my opinion. I have my like I said, it's Jamaica first for me. I may not agree, I may not be enthusiastic about the results of the 2025 general elections, but I will not tear Jamaica down in the process. I won't burn the country just because my candidate didn't win. And I feel like this is what is happening on the PMP's side. To his credit, Mark Golding conceded the election once he saw where the result was, and I found his speech to be very sobering and respectful and representative of what should happen in a democracy. But then the supporters, give me pause, because they are just going around and making all these unsubstantiated and sometimes false allegations. As I have said, I too found it suspicious that the Prime Minister won his seat. When I look at how the election result turned out, the JLP won. They even won the popular vote. The JLP won the popular vote. So, of course, I had to look at St. Andrew West Central seat to see, okay, how many people were actually registered to vote? How many people are on the voters list as eligible to vote in that constituency per the Electoral Office of Jamaica? So, of course, you'd have to go to the Electoral Office of Jamaica's website because they have the information there, going all the way back to the 19th or 1944, I believe, they have the election results going as far back as that. You can go on their website and find the information for yourself before you come on the internet and you make unsubstantiated claims about the results of the election. Don't do that. It does not serve us for us to try and delegitimize a legitimate process that was advanced. I am the first one to say I did not want the JLP to win. And I've already expressed my reasons. I will not relitigate those issues. But let us look at the St. Andrew West Central seat. How many people were registered to vote in St. Andrew West Central according to the Electoral Office of Jamaica? 32,213 people were registered to vote. 32,000. Unless you think that, oh, well, they padded the list. In 2020, it was 30,188. In 2016, it was 29,258. In 2011, it was 26,320. So what are you talking about when you say that more people voted in the election than is in the constituency? Come on, man. We need to do better than that. We need to stop it. I get it, you are dissatisfied with the outcome, but someone has to win and someone has to. There can only be one winner. That's how it works. There can only be one winner. That's how election works. That's how votes work. And not because the person that you did not support lost does not give you a right to come on the internet and make these unsubstantiated false claims. Because I too I'm like, okay, I need to check, but I wasn't going to make a video about this. I'm like, okay, whatever. He won. I thought some hanky-panky was going on, but it's neither here nor there. Like, even if we go and investigate and he lost his seat, okay, the JLP still won anyway. There's no way they can lose the election based on the number of seats that they won. So it's like, what are you going to do? It doesn't affect anything. Even if the Prime Minister didn't win his seat, the JLP still won. So, and I think the outcome that we would have loved is if the PNP won. So, let us be reasonable. Now, when I look at the number of votes that were cast for the PNP, and because you want to look at, okay, if something was untoward happened, how many votes did the Prime Minister get? And then you look at the previous elections, because I think Andrew came into that seat in 2011. How many votes he normally get? In 2020, Andrew got 7,169 votes. To the JLP Patrick Roberts, 3,925. So in 2025, in this election in 2025, he got 7,054 votes. In 2020, he got 7,169 votes. In 2016, he got 8,563 votes. In 2011, he got 7,799 votes. So the number of votes that he got is not misaligned. This is typically the number of JLP supporters who turn out in that constituency to support the general elections. When we look at the voter turnout, it is also averaging about 12,000 people. I'm going back as far as Andrew was contesting that seat. So it's 2011, because remember, I think Bruce Golding resigned and turned it over to him in the early part of 2011, and there was a 3-month, and then they forced him to call the election, and he called the election and lost. Right? So in 2011, the voter turnout was 14,677 people. In 2016, the voter turnout was 15,308 people. In 2020, the voter turnout was 11,316 people, and we can attribute that to COVID. And in 2025, I'm not sure what the voter turnout is, because I don't know. It hasn't been. I haven't seen it yet. But based on how the votes were apportioned between Andrew and Paul Buchanan, we have 12,007 votes. So there is nothing untoward in terms of the numbers as we are seeing them that would suggest that something untoward happened. Between the two candidates, it's 12,007 votes. Previously, it was 11,316. Before that, it was 15,308. So if we saw 25,000 people, then, we might be like, okay, all of a sudden, we have 25,000 people showing up to vote. That, then you perhaps would have a valid claim that maybe something went wrong here. But when you're looking at the history of this seat, since Andrew became a contender for the seat, the numbers, the math is nothing. Because we remember, our perception can be something that is misaligned with reality. So if you have a view, like I did, it is on you now to go and investigate. Am I correct? Before you come on the internet. I know videos like these don't get the likes and the views, and maybe that's why people make the, because anything controversial gets pushed out by the algorithm. But I'm not a controversial person. I'll never be a controversial person. If I make a mistake, I will always come back and tell you, say, well, I was wrong, And usually it's because the information that I got was wrong. I've never had to do that yet. I haven't had to do that yet. But like I said, I too expressed concern about the prime minister seat. I'm like, the way it was looking, wasn't looking good, and I would love for the ECJ to explain to us those 18 boxes, which division they came from, just to assuage our concerns, so that we can be satisfied, right? That there was no, skullduggery going on. But having looked at the statistics, that it is suggesting that nothing unusual happened here. Andrew got typically the same number of votes that he normally gets, which is averaging 7,000. The JLP got typically the same number of votes that they got, which is averaging about 5,000. PMP supporters did not come out and support Mr. Buchanan. The highest number of votes the PMP got in that seat since Andrew began contesting is 6,760. Still wouldn't be enough to usurp Andrew's 7,000 average. The highest number of votes that the PNP got in that seat since Andrew began contesting for that seat is 6,740. Andrew's always gotten over 7,000 votes. So why are we on the internet, and from people who I expect better, suggesting that more people voted in Andrew's constituency than were registered to vote? We need to stop it. Because you're not hurting Andrew, because it's easy to debunk. It's easy to debunk. That is something very easy, because that was the first thing I thought to do. How many people were registered to vote in that constituency? Because it's not even the voter turnout that is important. It's how many people were registered to vote. Because you can't determine how many vote for a particular candidate is in a box. There's no way for you to pan out that metric. Because if somebody wins a seat by a landslide and there were 100 boxes, it simply means that all 100 boxes, everyone voted for that one candidate. That's what it means. So while we're counting and we're getting the results, it's not really indicative of anything, to be honest. The results, as we see them changing in real time, are not indicative of anything. It is just to build anticipation and to keep us engaged in the whole process. But it's not indicative of anything. Of course, let's say if somebody had 2,000 vote lead and there are 2 boxes left, and then the person who was trailing behind by 2,000 votes suddenly won, of course, and they wouldn't do that because they're not stupid. Now, when persons are saying that they saw police throwing away ballot boxes, but from what I understand, I've never been an election day worker. I don't know how the process goes, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. Aren't there somebody from the both parties there, plus you have perhaps another independent person who's not affiliated with anybody, and perhaps not affiliated, because the CAFE, Citizens for Free and Fair Election, or Citizens Action for Free and Fair Election, whatever they want to call themselves, they had people at these polling divisions too, who were observing the elections to ensure that the Constitution was followed in terms of how the elections are to be conducted. So I don't, when we hear these things, it's but the PMP has a representative there, the JLP has a representative there, and you're undercover. Just like when you go on a plane, maybe 1 or 2 persons on the plane are not passengers, they are working with the government. You know what I mean? And we've never been able to spot who is not an actual passenger. Right? So it's there are persons who are at these polling stations who are ensuring that everything is as it should be, not just the returning officer. So I don't how would they get to? I'm sure the boxes are not transported by themselves. Is that how it works? The police just take it and go with it, or are these people going with the boxes? Somebody explain it to me. So how would they get to discard boxes? Or how would that work? And once the votes are cast, if you throw away the box, wouldn't those votes be unaccounted for? Because once you cast your vote, that thing is being recorded. How should I put it? Is the voter turnout predicated and after the votes are counted in terms of the boxes, or when you come to and you come to the polling station and they, because there's a book that they find your name and they tick it off. That's what happened when I don't know if they're still doing the same thing because I didn't vote in this one, but when you go they identify you, they take your ID and there's a book with your name in it, and I think you have to sign. I can't remember, but I think you have to sign something, so they would know without the ballot boxes how many people actually showed up to vote. So if you throw away a box or two, or you add a box or two, would they not know that, wait a minute, this is not what the physical thing that we have, the manual thing that we have is suggesting? If they throw away the boxes, they must know that the boxes that there are votes unaccounted for. And if they add boxes, they must know that there are votes that are representative of people who did not show up to vote. Because when you go, you don't just go and vote. They have a book and your name is in it, and you have to show your ID, and I think you have to sign. I don't remember, it's because it's been a minute since I voted, but I know there's a book with your name in it, and you show your ID, and I think you have to sign. I don't remember, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But they can get the results of how many people actually showed up to vote without having to wait until the actual votes are counted from the ballot boxes. So we have to be more responsible, because this is the thing, if you don't understand how the process works, then it is irresponsible of you now to come and make unsubstantiated allegations, because then just by virtue of you speaking, people can know that, okay, clearly this person has no idea what they're talking about, because you can't, there's no way for that to happen, because they would know that there are less votes than were cast, or there are more votes than were actually cast. But like I said, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not familiar with the process, but I do know that there are representatives from both parties who are supposed to be at each polling station to ensure that the interests of their party is not being undermined. And I know that there are independent observers who are, plus the press people are there as well, and so on and so forth. So I just, I saw where people were. This election was a very disappointing one. And it's not because Andrew won, it's because I am seeing where nothing has changed. It's the same partisan bullshit. People just voted because they're PNP or JLP. And I thought with millennials, Gen Zs can vote too, because Gen Zs are about what, 22. With millennials and Gen Zs, I thought that we would have seen a shift in how politics is in Jamaica, but nothing has changed. I think the boom has fucked us up and made us into them. And we're just as tribalistic and backward and stupid as they are. And so we just come out and vote because, well, I'm JLP, and vote because, well, I am PNP. I don't see where there's any change in how we approach elections. And I am sure if you were to do a survey right now, and I don't mean online, go around and talk to people. Which party did you vote for and why did you vote? Which policies resonated with you? They can't tell you. For any party, whether JLP or PNP. I guarantee you that if you do that right now, you just randomly go around and ask me, did you vote? Who did you vote for? Which of the policies? Did you read the manifesto? What stood out to you? What convinced you? They can't tell you. I guarantee you that. I read both manifestos. I'm not going to tell you I read them from cover to cover, because the JLP was 110 pages. I'm not reading all of that shit. The PMP's was 55, I think 54 pages. And I went through and I looked at, you have to skimp read. When you go to college, they teach you how to, you can't read everything word for word because you just ain't got the time. But you do your skimp reading and you know when to pick up certain things and whatever. Plus, we do have AI that can help us. You can drop it in there, ask it to summarize the main points, pick out the main policies, and you can even drill down, explain what does this mean, yada yada. You can do that. We have internet now, we have AI now that can help us. So I found, and that's how I came to determine that had I voted, I would have voted for the PNP, because I feel that their policies were more aligned with where I want to see the changes that I want to see happen in Jamaica. It is unfortunate that I don't think that, the JLP is good for the economy, it's just bad for Jamaica. As in terms of Jamaicans, you'll hear all the time, we grew the economy by X% and the economy is growing, blah, blah, blah. And that's true. But then why is it not seen in the wider Jamaica? You grow the economy, but Jamaicans are suffer. That is the problem of the JLP. They are for the rich. And so, yes, the economy is growing, but it's them and them rich friend that pocket the money. And the rest of us, are suffering. They rob from the poor and give the rich. And the JLP take from the rich and give to the poor. The PMP take from the rich and give to the poor. That's the difference between the two parties. And that is why the PMP, as always, if you look at the metric in terms of the economy, PMP has done worst. In every instance that the PMP is in power, the economy is worse off. The PMP is not going to agree with me, because of course, why would they agree with me? They'll tell you, oh, we did this, we did that, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. Look at the metrics. It's not what you did, it's the outcome that matters. You have to look at outcomes. What was unemployment? What was inflation? What was the rate of exchange? What was crime and violence looking like? What was the debt to GDP ratio looking like? What was GDP? What was the GDP per capita? These are the things that you would look at. And I guarantee you, if someone does crunch the numbers, when you look at the economy, the JLP has always been better for the economy, just worse for Jamaicans. Because the wealth travels in an upward trajectory. And that is why you'll find that a lot of people who support the PNP are the ones who can tell you exactly what the PNP did for them, when that is not supposed to happen. If you can say, well, this house was given to me by the PNP or by the JLP, that's gutter politics. I'm not saying that if someone is in real dire need and the government steps in and help, that's not a problem. But if you talk to most PNP, they can tell you what the PNP actually did for them. The PNP actually gave them, the individual, something tangible. That's not how you run a country. You're supposed to put policies and laws in place that uplift the people as a whole. So a labor right can say, why, when PNP in a power, X, Y, and Z. Because the macroeconomic policies that you implement benefits everyone, and everyone can see a difference in their life for the better. That is what you as a government is supposed to be doing. But what we see happening more often than not is they'll come and they'll help this one to finish the house. They'll give this one 50 block and some cement and a couple, I don't know, ton of steel or whatever, right? They'll send this one child to school and they'll give this one a house, and that's what the PNP does. And so that is why you'll have some people, it don't matter what you do, they'll tell you, boy, I have this house because of the PNP, so you can't get me vote for JLP. Yet when the JLP came, this is not a JLP. Like I said, I wouldn't have voted for Andrew in this election. But just to give you an example of how a government is supposed to operate, when the JLP in 2016 increased the minimum wage, it wasn't in 2016, but that was their promise, to move the minimum wage from $500,000 to $1.5 million. Every working Jamaican benefited. That is how the government is supposed to operate. Whatever it is that you're putting in place, everyone's supposed to see some marginal benefit arising out of those policies or those laws. Simple one too. That is how. It's not supposed to be I come and I build a house for you, so I now get a vote of your life, because every day you go and look and say, irrespective of what, so I can now become a dictator and running the country into the ground, and you're still going to vote for me because, oh boy, JLP gave me this house. This is the Jamaica that we live in. And that is how people are voting still in 2025. Boy, and Mr. So-and-so sent back, if I never JLP or if I never PNP, I couldn't send my children go to school because me just get the book list. Go give MP such and such, and he bought all 7 books. That's how people vote in Jamaica. If they don't receive something in their hand, and if you listen to the people from East Portland, that is how they're talking. Anne-Marie never come and give them something in them hand. She did a fixed road like she a idiot. Road Canyon. I believe someone said that. Yeah, if you give them a fixed road, the guy from Portland Spice TV. So we thank you for fixing the roads and this and that. But now you gotta go. I thought he probably thought he ate with that, but it's like, you're just proving us right. You're a bunch of Judases. We have to come out of the mindset that the government owes you personally, you the individual personally, something. No. What I am advocating for, I'd love to see reform in the employment sector. Because right now, the way the laws are, there are little to no protections for workers. And employers are having a field day. And I can guarantee you, there are many instances where persons are not even being paid the minimum wage. I know it's their fault because, someone close to me was like, oh, I went for an interview and I went to this, to teach at this private basic school, and the lady wanted to pay me $48,000 a month. I'm like, girl, the minimum wage is $15,000 a week. Like, How do you not know this? You know what I mean? Like, there are people who are being paid less than what the minimum wage is because they just don't know. Because they would pay them on a monthly basis, right? So, okay, you're gonna get $40,000 or $50,000 for the month, and you're not doing the calculation to say, okay, it's 15,000. Well, it's now 16, but it's $16,000 a week times 52 weeks, then divide by 12, and this is what it's supposed to be per month. And if you're working more than 40 hours for the week, they need to pay you your overtime. People don't do that, and so employers are underpaying people right now in Jamaica. And the people just don't know. And then we have like the situation with me where I was working at a hotel for 11 years. And what they would do is give you a short-term contract, and there's this loophole in the law where you're not considered an employee if there's a 3-week break in your service. So they will send us off on vacation for 3 weeks, and then we come back and they give you a 6-month, a 7-month, a 10-month, a 11-month contract, and then send you off for 3 weeks again. So you can't take them to court to say, oh, well, I was working at this place for no, you have been working there for as long as your contract says, because they ensure that they take advantage of that loophole that says if you have been away from work for 3 weeks, then your tenure would reset and you would start over again. And that's what they did. And so after 10, 15 years, they can just give you a 3-month contract and not renew it. And if you go to the Ministry of Labor, they're going to say, well, you've been employed for 3 months. There's nothing that we can do. Even though you have been working at this company for 10 years, 11 years, however long. And you just don't get, because they have not dismissed you, so they owe you no notice pay, your contract is just not renewed, and that's it. So I would love to see employment reform. I would love to see a National Bureau of Labor Statistics where pay scales and pay ranges are posted on the Ministry of Labor's website so people can see what these roles are valued at, so we don't enter into the employment space with zero knowledge of what we should expect for pay. They are taking advantage of us and they are underpaying us. And it vexes me when I hear, MPs coming out and say, oh, we have to produce more if you want more pay. We are being underpaid sometimes by 100%. That happened to me personally. 100%. So what are you talking about? If someone is employed and you're supposed to be paying them $10, but you're paying them $5, what more? Why are you saying if they need $10, they need to work more, they need to produce more? No. What I am currently producing, that is valued at $10, and you're not paying me that. So why would you ask me to produce more to get the $10? That makes no sense. They're so far removed from the realities that we are arrested with that they don't even understand our plight. And these are the people that we're voting for. And we ourselves are not advocating for the things that we want to see change. There's a lot that needs to change. I am happy that both parties are looking at, in terms of the minimum wage, first the minimum wage and the income tax threshold, because that will benefit everybody. So we will see marked improvement in quality of life, as long as you're working, that is, when these go into effect. So I am very happy that the JLP has committed to raising the income tax threshold to $2 million and increasing the minimum wage won't impact me because I wasn't ever making minimum wage, but increasing the minimum wage to $32,000 over a number of years. We'll see how that pans out, how they go about. It can be done, but there has to be a very strategic way in which you go. On the face of it, people just, it doesn't matter. But it's like there's a way that you can go about doing it to mitigate the impact that it will have on SMEs. So we'll see how Andrew rolls that out. But that single policy alone will benefit every single Jamaican, whether you're PNP or JLP, and that is how the government ought to operate. What we also want to see is that all beaches on the island, we must have access to them. The beaches belongs to Jamaicans, and so that is so these are the things that we're supposed to be advocating and pushing for when we have people say, oh, I want to be your member of parliament, but instead we just go out and we vote along party lines, as we see happened in East Portland, and it is very unfortunate. Once again, congratulations to Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the Jamaica Labour Party for securing a historic victory in the 2025 general elections. Not satisfied with the result, but at the end of the day, we must accept that these are the results, and that is what we have to live with going forward. Thank you for staying with me, and I will see you in the next video.